Hello, community. Welcome to Now What, the space where we explore how to navigate life's unexpected pivots and find your way to a fulfilling life where your work and passion align. Today is a very special vlog because my guest is not just an inspiring leader, he is a dear friend and colleague. For over a decade, Nick Albares and I have worked together in a few coalitions advocating for our communities and pushing for systemic change to increase and improve access to healthcare. But recently, Nick decided to take his advocacy to a whole new level. He's currently running for the United States Senate. Nick, watching you take this massive leap is the ultimate now what moment. Thank you for being here to share your story.
Tiffany, thank you so much for having me. It really is a joy to be with you this morning.
Thank you. So, before we get into some deep questions, give the community a little introduction about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Nick Albares. I live in the Gentilly neighborhood of New Orleans with my wife, Marguerite, who's an artist and school teacher, and my three sons, Bobby, Eli, and Joseph. Their ages 11, 9, and 6, and they all go to public schools in New Orleans. And I'm just really glad to share a little bit more about my story and a little bit more about my priorities today. But that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, Nick. And I know you shared with me that that painting behind you is by your wife, and I just love it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
exactly the feel we're trying to go, share with the world through this Now What vlog series. So I'm glad that's behind you.
Yeah, that's right. And that's something that we've talked about on this campaign is spreading love, spreading joy, even in these really difficult times, and
Mhm.
building community, creating connections between people and ideas, creating connections between movements, and just really stepping forward in courage and confidence. Because I feel like when we do that, it attracts and begets courage and confidence within our community. And so
Mhm.
that's what we're about. And my wife does that through visual arts, and I do that through organizing, through policy change, and at this point, stepping up for public leadership.
And thank you and your wife so much for that. We need it so much right now. So I appreciate it myself, and I'm sure our community does too. All right, Nick. So we spent about 10 years working side by side in the coalition work for access to care with the Medicaid expansion in Louisiana and other things with our FQHCs. What was the specific moment, the catalyst that made you look around and say, now what? I need to run for the US Senate.
Well, you're right, Tiffany. It really was this culmination, and much of it is around healthcare. It's about healthcare, I think, as both a policy issue, but then also as just a larger societal health issue. Because when I was looking around on the public policy side, Republicans in Congress rammed through $1 trillion in cuts to the Medicaid program. Like you said, we've been working and fighting for over a decade to preserve the access to care that was put in place by the Affordable Care Act. Not
Mhm.
a perfect law by any stretch, but something that provided healthcare to millions of people, provided protections for people with pre existing conditions. And that was something worth fighting for. We pushed back against repeal and replace back in 2016 and 2017. And we pushed back when they tried to ram this through, but they got it through this time. But they put the effective date as January 1st, 2027. And so I felt a need to tell people that healthcare is on the ballot and that there was no action on the Affordable Care Act subsidies when Republicans in Congress said that they were going to work on them. And so we see healthcare prices going up, up, and up, along with prices across the board. But then, like I said, I think it's about societal health as well. We're in this place where there's just this massive division, and where all the Republican candidates in the Senate race seem to be rushing to put their arm around Donald Trump, who is putting out just statement after statement that is destructive to the dignity of people, both here in the United States and across the world. And I felt like it was just necessary for me to be an example to my three boys, to kids throughout the country, and to people of goodwill to say, we need a US Senate that's based in dignity, solutions, and results.
Thank you, Nick. And bringing up kids, seeing you, yes, you are such an inspiration and stepping up. Ugh, so proud. So how has our past decade of grassroots and coalition building prepared you for the realities of the Senate race?
Well, I think a few different things in the past decade. It shows, I remember when the Congress tried to push through the repeal and replace a decade ago. And we remember John McCain's famous, thumbs down on the Senate floor. And that was just a time where there was, in effect, a campaign pushing against those healthcare cuts. And at the time, I served with the Louisiana Budget Project, and we led a statewide tour around the state talking about what the impacts would be. And then, when I was with Governor Edwards, working on Medicaid expansion and preserving that, there were times where we would again go around the state, especially during that reelection campaign when Eddie Risponi said that he wanted to freeze Medicaid expansion. It's one of these things where you bring everybody together, providers, advocates, everyone talking about the importance of healthcare access and coverage, and you just go. And that's what I felt with this campaign, where there was just a need to step forward and go and just keep pushing, keep getting the word out, talking to everyone, getting in front of as many people as possible to say, we can do this differently. If we demanded that billionaires paid their fair share, we would be able to pay for things like early childhood education, paid family leave, health
Mhm.
care for every single person. This really is about the fundamental human dignity of every person in Louisiana, every person across this country. And it's about priorities. And so, why are we sending billions of dollars in munitions into
Right.
Iran in this dangerous conflict when we could be investing in our communities here in Louisiana?
Yeah. Bringing up the work with the Medicaid expansion, that happened about a little bit more than 10 years ago. Louisiana is always either 50th or 49th.
Yeah.
And it was a time where I was proud and we could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, um, that more people were getting access to healthcare. And we still have it now. And so I'm just wondering, and this isn't a question I kind of prepared you for, but what are you hearing right now from community members when when you talk about Medicaid expansion and healthcare access?
Well, the thing that I think you mentioned is it's been just over a decade, and I said often in my work at Volunteers of America that Medicaid expansion kind of set the stage. Health coverage is critically important, that you're able to go and see a doctor and see the medical professionals that you need. But we see the impacts over time,
Yeah.
both at a personal level, right? You don't just go to the doctor once and you're cured of everything. You need to have consistent follow up and consistent engagement with the provider and getting into those routines where you're not using the emergency department as your primary care, right? That's something we talk about a lot. But
Mhm.
also from a systems perspective, I think it takes time for us to develop the innovation that really can address things like social drivers of health, health related social needs. That was something that I was really involved with at Volunteers of America. Medicaid expansion set the stage, and then it allowed us to think about creatively, how can we address people's health on a societal level
Mhm.
with social needs taken into account, where we're not just dealing with disease once it's acute, things are out of control, but we're able to think about preventive health, and we're
Yes.
able to think about how we can work on a population health level with health related social needs and all these social drivers of health.
Thank you for adding that, for sure. That the prevention is a major need that we have in the state to kind of change our mindset from being like a sick society, right? Into like a healthy and well society where we're thriving. Yeah. That's the vision for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So this vlog is all about navigating unplanned challenges, Nick. Since
Yeah.
launching your campaign, What has been the most unexpected hurdle you faced, and how did you pivot to handle it?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that answer comes easy to me.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know, some of your listeners may know if you follow me on social media, but my brother David died unexpectedly just over, I think it was 2 weeks ago today, actually, so 14 days ago, and that's not something you can ever prepare for. It's not something that I experienced at losing a sibling. I have three younger brothers, and he was extremely close to me. So going through the process of grief
Mm.
and loss on the campaign trail, with someone who was a major friend, supporter, just someone I love so deeply.
Mm.
That's certainly been the biggest challenge and the biggest, it's not even a hurdle. It's something that I carry with me. And, but also something where, I'm driven even further because I know his passion for caring for our communities as well.
Yeah. Nick, I'm sorry for your family, for your loss, but he's your guardian angel for sure.
Yeah.
I can feel
Yeah.
it. He is with you
Yeah.
for sure. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you're carrying that light with you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, Nick. Um, so my current work is currently focused on sustainable leadership, and I've been trying to operationalize rest and mental well-being for leaders. Like that is my thing right now. So running a statewide campaign, I'm sure, is very exhausting. How are you protecting your peace and maintaining your good energy amidst the chaos?
Yeah, that's a great question and such an important one because for those of us who are working for healthy communities, who are working for societal health and
Mm.
healthcare access, I think health starts at home and it starts with ourselves. And so for me, a big thing has been trying to get consistent sleep, just a basic one, because I'm at my best in community and in doing this work when I have a good sleep foundation. So that's number one. And then moving my body, when I'm in a place of stress, going for a walk, taking deep breaths is really important. And so getting out, even just in nature, just walking down the street and taking a phone call that way and trying to move my body and do exercise where I can. It's a very grueling, busy schedule, but
Mhm.
fitting that in, I think is really important. And then, continuing to treat my body right, eat whole foods, eat try to stay away from the processed foods as much as possible in order to just keep the body feeling good and keep the energy level strong. But I do get energy from community, and
Yeah.
so I love connecting with people all across the state. I love listening and hearing people's stories. And it can be taxing because I'm also hearing people's struggles, but I want to hear people's struggles because I want to be the voice that is taking those to Washington, D.C., creating the change necessary to build healthier communities for all here in Louisiana.
Great, Nick. I feel like when you're a senator, I'm going to come back and ask you this question too, just to hold you accountable to take care of yourself. That's
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, we need that accountability, both for the self-care and also on the policy side. So I'm always appreciative of accountability.
Okay, cool. So politics can be very noisy and it's easy to kind of get pulled off your center, I'm sure. So what's your anchor right now, Nick?
My anchor is just bringing my true self into the world. It's bringing my authentic self and really bringing, and I'm starting to say this more and more on the campaign trail. I didn't set this up with the painting. I really didn't even think about it, but bringing love, into our communities because I don't want to be afraid to say that word. I don't think that it's soft. We talk about strength a lot in politics, and strength is really important. But I think that there is true strength found in love. And I think that, what love looks like in public is justice, and it's working
Mm,
for policies that create healthy communities. And so, I want to bring that consistently. And, a big thing for me is also like staying off of social media, and the internet. And it's hard because, I've got teams now that handle the different aspects, handle the communications. And, I want to portray, my true self in every venue, in every place. But, I have to be able to bring a message forward and trust the people around me to bring that message into all of our communication channels. But it's really about staying true to who I am and bringing my values forward. And when I do that, I think that we're going to create community along the way. We're going to
mm,
build power that can create the change that's necessary in our country and in our state. And like I said, along the way, we're going to build community and we're going to share love.
mm. I feel like you have a few good quotes in what you just said that I'm gonna use for sure. Like, love looks like justice in the community. Like, that's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very real.
Absolutely.
No one makes this leap alone. So, how important has it been for you to have a council of like trusted friends and advisors to keep you grounded? What does that look like?
Oh, it's essential. I think that when you step into this, you really feel the community around you. Like in those first few days when I stepped forward, I could just feel the support of close friends, of family, and it just felt this lift
Mm,
from that. And because that's what I say, this is not, about me. Yes, Nick Albares, Nicholas on the ballot, it's going to say Nick Albares. That is the person that I'm asking you to vote for, number one on the ballot. But that is really just the conduit for what I hope to be true,
mm,
sustainable policy change. And I've said this around the state that this campaign can't just be about me, about one individual. It's about us. It's about community. Because in order to sustain change, it has to be something that lasts far beyond my years, far beyond my time in the United States Senate. It has to be something that creates a movement amongst people who say, we want dignity in our public policy. We want healthier communities. We want leaders that are standing on their own 2 feet, who are working for the people. And sometimes I tie this into my remarks. I think it's just an interesting piece that my name Nicholas actually literally means in Greek victory of the people.
mm.
So there's that, and so that's what I want to live up to my name, and have this truly be a victory of the people.
That is awesome. So for those of our community members who are watching right now, and they might be staring down like a big now what moment or challenge that might be a little scary, like starting a business or changing careers or deciding to lead themselves. What advice do you have for taking the leap when you don't have all the answers yet?
That's a really good question. And it's one that I grappled with. I was actually doing some exploratory work for some state legislative seats that I was originally thinking about. That's
Mhm.
what got my wheels turning. I mean, I've always thought about running for public office. I just found a message that I sent to someone 10 years ago
Mm.
talking about, running for office. So it's something that's been there. And I'm sure for many of your viewers and listeners, there are people who have that thing that's been floating around in their mind, for a decade or even more. That's a dream, an idea, a vision. And my advice is to be thoughtful and strategic. And, when the time is right, when you feel that call to step forward, not with having everything figured out, but step forward in confidence and courage and know that that confidence and courage will attract people and attract connection to you, and knowing that you are so important, you have so much potential, and trust in that. And then don't be afraid to ask for help, because we cannot do any of this alone. This is totally a group effort. A campaign is a movement. I have so many people that are working with me in this effort. And so bring people together, share your vision, and then I think that, step forward in confidence and courage. And you're not guaranteed that everything is going to go smoothly, but continue to learn from every instance and continue to push, 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 iterate, learn, and just don't let anything hold you back once you flip that switch.
That's good. Thank you, Nick. Very wise advice. So let's fast forward to the other side of the election when you have won and you take your seat in the US Senate. What is the first major change you want to bring to the table? And what does your personal legend or legacy that you want to leave look like from that office?
So it comes back to where we started talking about healthcare and Medicaid expansion.
Mhm.
My number one priority would be to reverse the $1 trillion of cuts to healthcare that were put in place, set to go into effect on January 1st, 2027, because that is just such an immediate need
Mhm.
that I think that if Democrats are able to take the Senate and the House, which when we win the seat here in Louisiana, I think we will have taken back the Senate. I think that will be a mandate for reversing those Medicaid cuts, because I think that people are going to be talking about that throughout the country. Of
Mhm.
course, that still needs to go to the president's desk for signature as a bill, but that's going to be what we push for. And then it'll be about pro family policies, pro worker policies on down the line. So, fighting to increase the minimum wage from what is an abysmal $7.25 per hour right now as a federal minimum wage. That's morally bankrupt. It's going to be about demanding that billionaires pay their fair share so that we can fund things like universal childcare, universal paid family and sick leave.
Mhm.
These policies that, as the richest nation on earth, we should be able to provide for families and create stronger, healthier communities that really serve every person. And so that's going to be on the policy level what I'm talking about, but then also from really a societal health perspective, like I shared, it's going to be about putting communications forward that are focused on unity, that are focused on getting past the division that we've seen in this country for far too long. We need to stand together as human beings in order to confront the challenges of the day. And I think that that takes a lot of work, but my training, my background is really rooted in bringing communities together and bringing people together and in trying to talk through and work through our differences so that we can come to solutions. And that doesn't mean watering down my values or my beliefs in any way, but it
Mhm.
means about shifting the way that Washington is operating right now and getting us to a place where we can work for both policy change and societal change.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap up our vlog here, Nick. So I have always been incredibly proud to work alongside you, but watching you step into this arena is truly inspiring to me, and I'm sure the rest of the community. Thank you for taking the pause on the trail to come and sit and share your journey with us today. Tell us, where can our audience go to support you and follow the campaign?
Yeah, you can go to nickforlouisiana.com. So that's all spelled out, NICKFOR, Louisiana.com. That's my website. And you can find opportunities to sign up, to volunteer. You can find opportunities to contribute. We're having our first commercial go up statewide at the end of this week. And, we want to get that into as many communities as possible. And so that does take resources. And you can also follow us on social media channels, which you can find on the website as well.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
To the community watching, remember that the things that challenge you are often just waking you up to your own light. Whether you're running for the Senate or just trying to find your footing in a new chapter, trust your path. Join us next time for more positive vibes and motivation. And remember to make sure you register to vote as a Democrat in Louisiana and go and vote. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. This really has been a joy.